Hi, I'm Alvin.
And I'm Sid.
And today we are talking about the first part of the Star Trek Picard season finale.
We're going to talk about Et in Arcadia Eagle Part 1.
Spoilers ahead.
Spoilers ahead. Be warned.
Live long and prosper.
Engage.
On screen.
I'm giving her all she's got, Captain.
Do it.
Photon torpedoes armed and ready to launch.
He's dead, Jim.
Red alert.
Today is a good day to die.
I'm a doctor, not a zookeeper.
We are Borg.
Make it so.
Warp speed, now.
Hey everyone, welcome to today's show. It literally took us like 10 minutes in order to actually try and figure out how to pronounce that episode. Between the two of us, Sid was the one who got the closest, so he volunteered to take that bullet.
It took me, I lost count after 10, but it took me a little while just to get it right, but I got it.
Yeah. It's Latin, and Et al. In Arcadia is the title of a book, of book one of Evelyn Way's Brideshead Revisited, written in 1945, in which a skull bearing the phrase acts as a metaphor for the death for a yearning for a lost paradise resulting from the transformation of war. The extent of my research is basically quickly looking it up on Wikipedia. But I mean, it does have some comparisons to the episode than what we've seen. Mm-hmm. I mean, especially right now, because in this episode, throughout the entire episode, we're seeing, like the calculation of life and death. The considerations that have to be taken when you have to decide, in order to protect life, do you take life? And how do you make that decision? We see. Soji talking about how Agnes took Maddox's life. Now she regrets it, but of course at the time it probably sounded like a good idea. Mm-hmm. And we see the synths rising up, which we'll talk about that after. We see Picard try and basically spare Narek. And of course, after he does, after a very cool scene, it turns out that he wasn't in trouble at all, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. What did you like the most about this episode? What are some things that stuck out for you for the episode? What did you like?
So, what I liked was that it kind of got into the action right away. There's like a brief moment where it just kind of reiterates a little bit of what was going on with Picard so far, but then right away it starts getting in right when we arrived at the planet after the transwarp scenes there. Yeah,
there's a nice moment of like, oh wow, we've arrived. It looks beautiful. I noticed there are no electrical storms on the planet,
which was interesting.
Nitpicking.
Yeah.
Either way.
But it was a Class M planet, very beautiful scene. And right when they're about to let go, oh, there's trouble.
There's trouble, yeah.
There's trouble already.
When Narek comes in. What did you, okay, and of course, right when things are looking dire, I love that. I love that shot when the Borg Cube arrives.
That was amazing, by the way.
Yeah, it swoops in. It comes out of another transwarp conduit, and there's a sweeping shot of the cube as it passes by the camera, and the camera follows along with it. And it's like you start right side up, you follow the cube, you're right side down, or vice versa. Mm-hmm. Sid pointed out earlier when we were talking about it. There is no up and down in space. One of the things I with Star Trek too is that the ships are always right side up, even when they're curving and maneuvering. They're almost always like you'd always tell there's an up and a down, right? And in space there is none.
I guess the unanswered or unannounced excuse for that would be using the galactic plane of the galaxy. So they'll use that as the up and down.
Well, which makes sense, right?
Which makes sense, yeah. Even though solar systems would go sideways. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, so after I thought the giant orchids were kind of cool,
mm-hmm.
With the orchid ships. I mean, especially when I tried bringing down the Borg Cube, they made a comment about how
that was very interesting. I don't recall seeing a Borg Cube in any of the Star Treks previously come down by some flower-like entity right down to the planet and crashing. That was amazing, actually. I actually enjoyed that.
Yeah, we only saw it enter the atmosphere, but it was still a really cool sight.
Yeah.
Okay. Brett Spiner returns, this time as Dr. Alton Inigo Soong. He plays it's great to see him back, but of course he's playing another Soong relative.
He's playing another character of a Soong relative, and it's great to see Brett Spiner back on the screen in Star Trek, but as another character. And yeah, we saw him at the very first episode reprising his role as Data. but only in those sequences through Picard. Like his character, it seems I feel that he has a little bit of that vibe of his father way back. Well, if you're going
I guess his grandfather, right?
Or grandfather or father back when Enterprise of those story arcs of the
with
the
students,
eugenics episodes, right?
Yeah,
and he has that little vibe going on, but at the same time he has that. It seems he has that passion to continue the work of what his father did all of those years ago with Data and his brother Lore and all the other cybernetic projects that he's been doing.
I just like to see, like, maybe if we get introduced to another soon ancestor, descendant, whatever, maybe let them be a chef. It's like they're always in robotics or some type of mad scientist role,
Or have them like be like an avid golf player or Paresis Squares champion or something, Well.
Yeah. So yeah, we get to see Synthville. This is one of the things too. I was curious about. Like, do we get there and it's like a lab that Maddox has built? Is it like a whole civilization of synths? And it's kind of a little bit of both. I don't know how much. To me, it sounds like Maddox got here or found his way here, and I'm assuming Soong had already set this up, and this must have been already an existing structure. He'd been working on this for a long time.
Yeah, so up until this episode, we assumed that Maddox was responsible for this whole thing that Soji wanted to go to this planet. Turns out that, well, at least from my point of view, that Dr. Soong was this whole mastermind all along, that he created this Synthville, this lab, or this, I'd say maybe this village or compound or research compound or something.
The civilization of Data is basically, right?
Right.
And I think it kind of makes a little more sense in the fact that I guess it wasn't a stretch to think that Maddox maybe cracked it, but it makes more sense now that, he cracked it most likely with the help of Soong, or maybe he cracked it and then Soong reached out to him because maybe he was just one of the people that Soong monitored, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure like all these, all these scientists, there's a community, they look out for other people's research and whatnot, right? Make comparisons, see what worked, what didn't work. It's, if they see something and they maybe they can try something in a different way, right? Yeah, but it was kind of cool. We see a lot of them with, the gold skin, the gold eyes, very, very reminiscent of Data. I like that when we have that conversation between him and Agnes, that essentially he's not like, it's okay. I understand you had your reasons for killing Maddox. It was like, you killed Maddox. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Yeah. Like he wasn't mad. Yeah. He was disappointed. Like you could tell that it's that classic, like that feeling or that tone. But he was getting that sense of conviction where he's saying, hey, like you should be ashamed of yourself. Like, I feel that you should commit your life to us for further research on this, to Dr. Girardi there.
Yeah, like he basically, said, I'm disappointed that you did that. But at the same time, if you want to make up for it, come look at what we're doing. And then, of course, they show a body. And I hope, and with this body that Soong showed off, I have a prediction that maybe it'll be a new Data. No, I'm sorry. Maybe it's a way of like bringing someone back to life, because he was talking about memory transfer, mind transfer, essentially.
Yeah.
Because I guess he's getting old and he's essentially thinking, well, can I put myself in the body of a synth? Right. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the ultimate things that we've seen. Westworld deals with this, spoiler for Westworld. Spoiler for Westworld. They kind of touch on this. But I don't want to see a situation where Picard, can live forever by being put in this body. I don't really think I'm pretty sure even if he was offered, he would say no,
Right.
But
I could see him saying that, because like there's that point that he brought up during his travels to this planet where, like, we know that Picard has a terminal illness that was mentioned in the previous episode, and as well as
all good things
in the Next Generation. And he was saying that, hey, like, if any of you try to like say that I'm like, you're weeping as if I'm like a dead man, you're gonna get a
Stop it. Yeah.
You're gonna get a word from me. Like,
Yeah, he doesn't.
You don't want him to be pissed off. And
Yeah, he doesn't want people to treat him different.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's reminiscent of how a lot of people, they don't want to be. I wouldn't want to be treated differently if people knew that I was dying. It was he reveals it to the whole crew, so now the whole crew knows. I mean, it was kind of nice seeing how the crew reacted to that, and everyone kind of reacted, in a different way. But going back to the Borg Cube, Seven's back.
Seven's back again.
In Elnor, they talk about Hugh, and to me, it seems, I'm wondering what happened to Nerissa because, to Rizzo, because, the last time we saw her, she was being swarmed by all these XBs. I'm wondering, is she captured? Is she assimilated? Is she killed? Was she just held hostage somewhere?
From what I recall, she just beamed aboard right before she was about to be killed, right aboard onto a ship.
Oh, she did, eh? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
that's what I'm remembering anyway. I'll have to rewatch that previous episode again, but I'm pretty sure she got beamed aboard just to in a last second decision.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, and we're also introduced to Sutra, which reminds me a lot of. She reminds me a little bit of Lore. Yeah. And she's scheming. She's suspicious of the organics. Yeah. And it's interesting to see that her kind of scheming with Narek. I'm pretty sure she's responsible for the death of her synth colleague. And Narek's escape. Of course, she's using that as a kind of an excuse to kind of rile everybody up to try and say, hey, let's. We have to band against the organics who are coming to kill us because, and there's another thing I was kind of iffy about. Sutra has I guess because she, happens to love Vulcan culture, she can suddenly do she can do a Vulcan mind meld. I don't think that was necessary. I think it was, you could come up with 100 different ways, for a synth to, do an android version of that. I felt it was kind of weird. I mean, it's kind of...
Yeah, it was cool, but at the same time kind of unusual because, let's say, if they have nailed the idea of actual mind meld, if androids can actually simulate that, there's a sort of soul that Vulcans have, right? You know what I mean? That's very. I thought I found that very interesting to see that mind meld from an android.
Yeah, I just feel like there's probably more. There's in addition to the spiritual aspect of it, there's more biological reasons for the Vulcans to be able to do that. I would have in mind of it was one. I think it's one thing for them to say, for example. Say Sutro, is fascinated by the Vulcan culture, and while she can't mind meld the way a Vulcan can, she's developed her own way using insert technobabble here, versus straight up I can do a Vulcan mind meld by just simply mimicking what they do, and it's supposed to somehow work. So I had a bit of an issue with that. Another thing I had an issue with was we've seen this before, the organics versus synthetics, battle. We've seen it in Terminator. We've seen it
Yeah, we've seen it in other sci-fi.
Mass Effect. That was a whole thing with Mass Effect. And I'm kind of hoping that in the next episode we don't end on a cliffhanger or on some type of thing where it's perhaps the future, or the next season is just going to be this big battle between them, and that's all it's going to be. I'm hoping for everything to be kind of wrapped up in the next episode, where maybe Soji, who we've seen as being very, we can see her inner turmoil, and it's really cool seeing her, trying to figure out what does it mean to take a life? When does someone take that decision? When is it right? When is it wrong? So I'm hoping that, she's going to come out with a Picard-like speech and prevent, a giant war from happening before it gets started almost.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where too, with Picard and, his speech to kind of, talk the androids out of, rising up and, essentially becoming a lynch, not a lynch mob, but trying to talk the sense out of.
Well, he was trying to talk them out of it, say, hey, we're trying to help you guys out. We'll have our federation, and then meanwhile, the Doctor said, Dr. Soong said, hey, the Federation didn't listen to you the first time from the Mars attack. They'll definitely not listen to you now.
Yeah, I feel like the speech really should have been about not giving into fear and generalizing, and then the assumptions, because everyone is fearful of synths, or many people are fearful of synths, and that's why they ban them, because they're worried they're going to destroy them. And basically doing the exact same thing, essentially justifying many of those fears, right? Instead, he pleads for the Federation, that the Federation will help them, and he'll convince them, and he'll protect them. And there's so many arguments to that, to the contrary. That in terms of one of his speeches, it's definitely not one of his best. Obviously wasn't effective, but
well, going back to the previous episode where they were that one scene near the end of the episode where they're talking these revelations, where they must say they brought up that point where when Zephyr Cochrane flew,
he broke the warp barrier.
Warp barrier. Someone came out and noticed, which was the Vulcans. And so now with this point of, if these synths decide to call out to a higher synth being who's out there somewhere,
what is going to come out of
what's going to come out? Well, that sort of race of higher being synths than the ones that we see here now will come out and say, hey, we see you guys, so now we're going to, we could do something unpredictable here. Like, we don't know exactly what they're going to do, whether they're going to, as what these current synths that we have now that we're dealing with, whether they're going to destroy all the organics or unify with these higher synths and then either collaborate with the organics or destroy them. It's hard to tell at that point. There's that open-ended story that's going on right now that with this this two-parter episode, right?
Yeah,
so,
I think we've stumbled upon. I think to me, it feels like the show has stumbled upon like the main plot of Mass Effect, and now we have this race of unseen, unstoppable beings and synths, and humans not being able to coexist, which I think is BS. I think that, but I mean, again, it's one of those things where it's a trope we've seen so often that I hope they don't fall into that for like the rest of the show. I'm sure there's some interesting stuff they can do with it. And of course, it brings up some pretty interesting arguments, in terms of like, what does it mean to be alive? What does it mean to be, better or worse, etc.? Can we not coexist with our differences? We've seen that the Federation, this collection of many different races, can coexist. So why can't synths, right? Because if you look at, is someone who is a Betazoid, are they inherently better because they can, sense people's feelings? Can they read people's minds, etc.? Right?
I think this would also go back to how on earlier Star Trek shows where we have our ups and downs with time travel episodes. I think that will probably go the same way as what you're saying, how, it's basically organics versus synthetics, this ongoing war, how we've seen this sort of idea on other shows and movies and even video games. So that I see where you're going with. I see where you're going with that point where we've been there before in other shows, and yes, I'll agree to you to an extent where Star Trek or the way how this show is going, we don't want to go there, but at the same time, they haven't explored that idea either in the Star Trek world. So in a way, I'm curious to see, but at the same time, I just don't want to hear of what I've heard before.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
yeah. One thing I would really like to see is, once this race, this unseen race, that finally comes out, or these beings finally come out, it'd be interesting if it's neither what they think it's going to be, and it's something completely, different from what, Sutro saw and what the Romulans saw, and it's something that'll have to pull everyone together in order to get along, and force them to work together to defeat whatever this enemy is coming, or smarten up in order to prevent their own destruction. Because again, if we have these, you get into situations where you have these omnipotent beings, and to us they're ants, like. There are people in the Q continuum who wouldn't care whether or not, if an entire race just gets wiped out, just snap it. Right?
I was going to say, it's like, where's Q in all of this?
Yes, where is Q in all of this?
Like, that would be really cool to see. Like, maybe, well, it may not happen this season, it might happen next season. We may see Q again, who knows? But with that said, I'm curious of where Q is going with all of this if he's watching this whole thing going on, because with this potential threat of the synths rising up and calling out any potential even higher being synths, where maybe the Romulans were right. Like maybe they have seen this before and again, going back to the previous episode, they want to make sure that none of this happens. That's why they're doing this by any means necessary to prevent this whole synth thing from happening. And with the mind meld that Sutro saw through Dr. Girardi, where they explain where maybe this whole thing that Commodore O gave you wasn't meant to be for organics. Maybe it's certain pieces of information where everything was destructive for organics, but as soon as we extract that information from Dr. Girardi going by way through Sutra by her, she sees it in a way where, wait a minute, this is
meant for us.
This is meant for us. Like this whole thing is meant for us. I see it as a way for us to maybe call out to these higher beings.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm still looking forward to the next episode. I just see certain tropes that they're doing. I'm hoping they don't fall into certain pitfalls. I mean, I just have a feeling there's going to be definitely a giant battle.
There's going to be a big space battle. And I'm kind of curious myself if the Federation does show up and get involved.
I would like to see the Enterprise show up, to be honest.
Well, the Enterprise, even any other Federation ships, how they've come about in the last 18, 20, 30 years. You know, since Nemesis at least. So I'm curious to see that.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I'm excited. I do hope that they it's not just all space battle, and that there are, they really kind of bring everything together in a nice, philosophical way, and something that has meaning.
Yeah, like how this whole season of Picard has been anyway, and how this show is anyway. Like,
I want a space battle, but I don't want an all space battle. I just want
something more down to earth, more grounded. How it always been this whole season. So I'm curious how this will all end in the next season.
Yeah, well, we'll find out in our last show next week.
All right.
The Trekily theme is Gravity by Stanley Gurvich, found on Artlist. All stock images and videos were acquired through Pixabay. Podcasting services acquired through Spreaker. All images and videos related to Star Trek are owned by CBS Corporation and are used within fair use laws. Please don't sue us. Thanks for bibbing aboard today. If you like the show, please hit the like and subscribe button and hit the notification bell.
We really enjoy doing these episodes, and if you'd like to support the show, please consider buying us a coffee.
You can do that on coolbiscuits.com, where you can also check out our other shows.
Until next time, live long and prosper.